Hi guys, in this video I'm going to show you how we decorate this little cake with a little heart pattern. I'm going to do a little bit of painting on it as well. So I've iced my cake ready. Now I do have videos on how to ice the cakes, so I'll put the links up for those on screen for you now. Now what I'm going to do is start by making the heart, so I'm just going to move my cake to one side. For our hearts we're just going to use the normal fondant. So I've just got a Renshaws one here in white, and I'm going to leave it white because we're going to paint it up in different colours. So taking my fondant, I'm just going to roll it out nice and thin. So I've rolled it reasonably thin, maybe a millimetre or so in thickness. You can have it a little bit thicker if you prefer. And I've got an assortment of different sized heart cutters. Now I'm going to try and put more of the larger one on if I can, because it's going to be easier for me to paint patterns on afterwards. So we'll just poke those out. And again we'll do the same with some other sizes. These are the plunger cutters I've got here as well. So these ones are nice and easy to just pop out by pushing the end after you've cut them. I will put up links in the information box below the video for where I've got all the equipment from, and some of the smaller one. Okay, so we'll just start with that amount. I can cut more out if needed. And what we're going to do is I'm going to put a little hole in my bigger ones. I'm going to leave the other ones without holes. Now if you find that it's a bit soft to lift up, sometimes I've just got a small palette knife for lifting them off the surface. Usually if they're modelling paste they're a little bit firmer, but I just wanted them in normal fondant, so they're a bit more difficult to move around until they've had a few moments to sort of start to dry. For the hole I've just got a piping nozzle, so I've got PME number 4 here, and I'm just going to push it in each one below where the little V comes down, and we're going to leave the smaller ones as they are. And what we're going to do now is have a go at painting them. So if you prefer to leave them a few minutes to dry, with them being soft you might find if you try painting them they squash and they indent quite a bit, so you can sort of give them 10 minutes to firm up a little bit. I'm going to use a couple of different size brushes as well. So I've just got a 0 one and a number 1. The 0 one's just a little bit finer. You can get a 0 0 as well if you find this one's not fine enough. I just like to dip it in my water and then twist it sort of out my fingers to ensure it comes to a point when you bring it out. So I'm going to use an assortment of pinks and purples and then a bit of green to go with my cake, but you can use whatever colours you want. And I'm going to start with a really nice simple one. So we're just going to put some little checks on, so we're just going to paint lines down. Now I'm just using water mixed in with my paint, so you can use alcohol if you prefer. Now it's quite dark is the colour, so if you want it to be a little bit lighter just brush a little bit more water in with your paint. So if it's too thick just try and wipe all the extra water off your brush and then wipe back through what you've painted on, and you'll see that it's going to lighten it a little bit as it's wiping off some of the extra paint that we've put on there. And you can always practice on extra hearts or a little scrap bit of icing if you want. Now sometimes you'll find water gathers around your paintbrush as well, so just make sure you've rubbed it off on your finger and it's not going to drip on your icing as you're painting. So we're going to put our lines now going over the opposite way. If I can hold it still. So just a really nice and simple one. You can repeat the design on smaller ones as well if you like, while we've got the green on the paintbrush. Now I'm hoping you can see what I'm doing on this. I realise I've moved the board all over the place so everything's a bit skewy. So it's starting to water down a little bit, so I'll try and get my brush a bit more in the thicker paint. You don't have to put loads of lines on. You'll probably find it's a bit of a struggle to squeeze loads on. But they are moving around my board quite a lot, so I'm trying to hold them still with my other finger. Okay, and we'll have a go with some different patterns now. And of course if you've painted patterns that you don't like, you don't necessarily have to stick them on your cake at the end, just choose the ones that you like best. So we'll have a go with a couple of the pinks. I've got a rose and a baby pink now. Again, just mix some of the colour on my brush with a bit of water in the lid. And I'm going to see if you can see it a little bit better if I zoom in. Hopefully it won't blur out too much. And I'm just going to paint in little lines, so it's not an exact shape, it is very rough. Just almost circles, but there's the odd little white bit missing from it, that's fine. You can do some so that they go half over the edge. And then I'm going to go with my darker pink, or the rose colour. Again, just make sure there's not too much water on your brush. I'm going to put some more little lines within the pink that we've already put on there. Or you could just draw little swirls as well, either looks good. And then I've got a little bit of green that we can put some leaves on there with. So again, just tiny little dabs with the brush. So I'm not doing anything fancy, it's literally pushing it down and then bringing it up as you release it, flicking it a little bit to create a basic leaf shape. Of course you can use different greens if you want more than one green in. We'll go back to our apple green. Just trying to put a little bit of this down the side of the other ones. And they're kind of merging together. Okay, I think I quite like that one. Go for a nice purple one now. I think what we'll do is we'll just put a little green line on for like some stalks. A few little lines, so they're nothing particularly neat, just some little lines. We're literally just going to dab around our lines. So again, it's nothing too fancy, you're just dabbing your brush on. It's starting to spray out a bit is my brush, but that's fine because it doesn't need to be neat. If you want a bit more green on, again just go over the top afterwards with more green. Again, just little lines that I'm painting on. And we could do similar to this again, but with a slightly larger rose so you can see a little bit better. So we're going to do little lines or curves coming around. This is the centre and we'll just keep going around, making it bigger and bigger as we go out. A little bit of green on the outside edges, only a tiny bit. Again, so it's just little flecks of colour. And we're going to go with the deeper red again. And we're going to try and get little lines within the lines that we've already put on there. Or you can go around the edge of the ones that you've put on. You can leave it like that, or you can try and blend it in a little bit. So to blend it, I've just sort of dried off my brush and then I'm rubbing it through the paint. So it just brings the two colours together a little bit more. If you blend it too much, you're not going to be able to see the difference between them though. And what I'm going to do is try and put a little spiral in the centre so you can see that it's a rose. Just a bit more water on my brush because this paint's quite thick. Okay. So let's try another one of those, but we'll mix a purple and a pink together and see what that one looks like. Again, we'll do one with some little leaves. We'll just put some little red dots within our heart. And we'll put some a little bit lighter. And we'll add a little bit of pink in with it. So you'll see we're not painting anything that looks identical to the flowers, we're just painting things in that give the impression of flowers from a distance. So we'll do a rose one now in the purples. It's quite dark, so I'm going to water it down a bit more. Just putting in some little circles, and then we'll go over them, mixing in a tiny bit of pink. And then we'll go over with the darker pink. Just choose the ones you like best, and of course we can paint up some of the smaller hearts as well, and if you don't want to put a pattern on them all, you can just paint them in a colour. Now the smaller ones I want to stick to my finger. So what I'm going to do, or try to do, is start with a darker edge, and then wet your brush, rinse it off a little bit, and just wipe any from the centre, and then just keep going around that edge, and you should see that it leaves you with a slightly deeper edge, and then it fades as it goes into the middle. Now I'm not sure how well you can see it on the camera. You can do those in different colours, just polka dots, just stripes, whichever you think looks best for it is absolutely fine. I've given my hearts a little bit of time to dry, and what I'm going to do is taking one of my hearts, I'm just going to put a little bit of water on the back, and I'm going to stick that where I want it to go on my cake. So you see I've started with the bottom ones. I have a mix of smaller ones and larger ones, and I'm going to vary them in height, so some lower, some higher. So keep doing that all the way around. And what I've done next is I've just marked lines going upwards into the fondant, because we're going to put a little line so that they look like they're on a string. I find it difficult to put a straight line, so I've etched one in to give me a bit of a guidelines when we're putting the piece of fondant string on. So I'm literally just using the knife that I've been using. Apologies if my hand gets in the way, I think it probably will. And we're going to just put a line indenting in like so. Just try to keep it straight. I'm not a big fan of doing straight lines, I do find them very difficult. Okay, so you just keep doing that all the way around, and then once we've got all those on, we're going to dye a bit of brown now next for our fondant. So I've dyed some fondant a pale brown colour, and I've mixed it with lots of Trex, which is vegetable shortening, and I've put it in my clay extruder. Now you can do this by hand, but it's a lot easier if you've got a clay extruder. Again, I'll put links to where I've got this from, and you're just going to squeeze it until your fondant starts coming out. So I've got quite a slim end on, a little round end. Okay, so I just need a small amount, and what we're going to do is work on some little bows, and these are just tiny, so I'll zoom in a little bit if I can. And I'm going to try and put a little bit of water, just slightly, just a little bit, on the centre. And the tricky bit is then picking up either end, and we're just going to create a little loop, which is sticking to me, and again the same with the other side. Create a little loop like so. Now the tails on my bow are a little bit long, so we'll just cut those off to the length that you like, and we're going to make a few of those. What we'll do is we'll make one for each of the large hearts that we stuck on the cake. I'm just doing that first so that they've got a few minutes to firm up, and then we'll move on to the next bit. So taking my clay extruder again, we're just going to squeeze out some lengths of brown, which we're going to stick above the hearts. We're just going to put a bit of water in the line that we've made above the heart, and then just gently put that on there. So I'm going to put it from where the hole on the heart is. Now I don't think I've put any water down there, so we'll just stick a bit of water under that, and I'm just going to push that under gently with my paintbrush, and I'm going to trim the extra off the top. And what we're going to do now is put a little bit more water just on this bit here, just make sure that's stuck in place, and we're going to try and take one of the bows that we made earlier. So these are very fragile, so just be careful with them, and we're just going to push those into place at the top of our little heart like so. Now I'm only going to worry about doing the bows on the big hearts. You'll see the smaller hearts I've not worried about because the bow's going to take up too much of the heart. If you prefer to put it on there, you can, entirely up to you. So it is now just a case of putting these strings all the way along on the top of each heart. And for mine, I've just made a little topper. So it's a larger heart and just a smaller one, and I've just painted one of the hearts. And I'm just going to stick that in place on the top, so it's got a bit of a feature on the top. So I'll show you it once all the string bits are added. Hope you've enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. If you liked this video and would like to see more, please click on the images of the other videos suggested. Also, please do subscribe to my channel using the button at the bottom right hand corner of the screen. You can also visit my cake website and my Facebook page to see more cakes and ideas.